Are you sure you're not in the wrong league?
Hello Summoners, Chakras or Kayle here, and today I bring you my on-hit Kayle jungle guide sponsored by LoL Pro and Cooler Master. This has been delayed because I've been perfecting it, but I hope you guys enjoy it. So, as a jungler, and specifically with this build, Kayle's role is to be a sustained damage dealer that will shred resistances very fast and provide a lot of damage coming from her Righteous Fury. Apart from that, she brings a lot of utility to the team with her Divine Blessing and her Intervention. She is also a very fast jungle clearer and has decent ganks but amazing counter ganks, especially after level 6. Let's start off with masteries. I'm going to give you 3 different pages that you can run, but you can literally deviate into dozens of other setups. It's mostly personal preference. 2109 is a good common setup for this build. You can then either choose between getting the extra AP for better early game clears or Executioner and Dangerous Game for better skirmishes and teamfights. Both are good options. Another setup that is used often is going for 2703 and picking up almost everything from the offense tree, only getting movement speed from the utility tree. On to runes, and once again you can use multiple different setups. Attack speed marks, armor seals, cooldown reduction, and 3 magic resistance per level glyphs and attack speed quints is what I usually use, but other options are viable as well. Hybrid penetration marks will give you a better mid to late game, but you'll feel you clear significantly slower in the early game. Not running the cooldown reduction glyphs is also an option. You can run full MR or full AP instead. Now onto the build, and here's where things become more complicated. Your starting items are obviously Machete and 5 potions. After this you want to get your Wriggle's Lantern and your boots ASAP. After that I get a Stinger for the much needed attack speed and cooldown reduction. This is your core build. You then have 2 different paths you may choose. The first would be grabbing a Runon's Hurricane. This may seem a very troll item, but when in range form it actually works on Kayle. Not only this, Hurricane also procs on-hit damage, so any on-hit item you may have, like Feral Flare, will be applied with Hurricane as well. The second path is slightly more defensive-minded, but equally awesome. Wit's End gives Kayle a ton of attack speed, even more magic resist shred, and even more on-hit damage. Somewhere between this, you should grab your tier 2 boots. I personally like Ionian boots because this build isn't too CDR focused, but anything works really. Other common options would include Zergs, Mercs, or Tabbies. The beauty of Kayle is the versatility in builds she's allowed to have. One could joke that she could go for a Bravery build and still do well. Anyways, I usually finish the offensive part of my build by getting a Trinity Force and finishing my Stinger into a Zephyr. You should grab the latter whenever you feel like you need the tenacity. However, keep in mind that this whole build is very situational. Other options would include, but are not limited to, getting Blade of the Rain King, the Black Cleaver, Frozen Mallet, etc. I want to touch especially on the first one that might become more important with Feral's on-hit lifesteal not scaling in patch 4.7. You can fit it in the build for any item I mentioned before. To finish off the build, I usually get a defensive item, but it doesn't have to be the last item in the build. Randuin's Zoman is a good item versus heavy AD comps and especially good versus divers. Banshee's Veil is my preferred magic resistance item. The bubble alongside the defensive stats help a bunch against the likes of Syndra and LeBlanc. If you want protection against both types of damage, a Guardian Angel will usually do the job. To conclude on the build, you'll notice that alongside the CDR from Masteries and Runes, I get 25% from my build. This puts me at 35% CDR, allowing me to almost always have my Righteous Fury up and having a relatively short cooldown on all my other skills. With that out of the way, let's move on to skill order. In the jungle, Kayle mostly needs to max Righteous Fury, especially considering she's building Feral Flare. After maxing that out, you should prioritize Reckoning for more damage and a more potent slow. Divine Blessing is mainly used for its haste, since you won't be stacking AP for potent heals. To finish off, I'd like to give some gameplay tips. First, you should know how to clear in the jungle. Having a ranged mode allows you to abuse the aggro range of jungle monsters and take them down without them taking damage, but without letting them reset. That's on another video though, so click on the video up there and learn more about that. In the jungle, and although you're prioritizing farming Feral Flare, you should still gank. Kayle has rather potent ganks, especially if she has red buff. If your laners have some sort of follow-up crowd control, you'll easily force out a flash or even get a kill. As for jungling in itself, I focus heavily on counter jungling. With Madras or Wriggles, you can easily dispatch a blue or red buff in about 5 seconds. So get in those deep wards, figure out the jungler's path, and be there when the buffs respawn to take them. Having a good control over the enemy's jungler will limit him a lot, and Kayle is very good at doing this. If your enemy starts blue on his first clear, it means it'll spawn at about 705, 710, so be there and take it unseen. Knowing the opponent's paths is also important for counter ganking. Kayle is one of the best in this regard. Being ranged and having a heal help a lot in this regard, but it's the ultimate that makes her unique. A 2 vs 1 turning into a 2 vs 2 can turn out extremely well for the team who has Kayle in it, if she counter ganks in time and gets that ult off on her teammate to bait out enemy cooldowns. Other than that, Kayle doesn't really have any specific combos or tactics. A good Kayle will mostly have good judgment. Heh, judgment, get it? Never mind. Anyways, a good Kayle is the one that approaches a given situation correctly. Decision making is key on her. In teamfights, if a priority target is getting bursted and you can ult in time, use it. But don't always be selfless. If you're confident that you need it more, save it for yourself. This concludes my on-hit jungle Kayle guide. I'll deliver my AP one soon, but I am leaving for All-Stars, so don't expect much video content from me in the following days. See you guys in the Rift, Chakra signing out.